It is 9 o'clock on Wednesday morning, which means it must be time for the Penn State Alumni Association's coffee hour. Welcome in. I see the Zoom room is filling up. As usual, we invite you to let us know who you are and where you're from. Today, go ahead and drop that in the chat. We have a great program. We're talking with fintech guru Natasha Bansgopaul. She's going to talk about her time at Penn State and her amazing career to date. She's also going to be available for questions. So if you want to ask questions, you can go ahead and drop them in the Q&A box, either here in Zoom or to those of you who are now live on Facebook, you can drop them in the comments. Once again, let us know who you are and where you're zooming in from this morning. This is the Penn State Alumni Association's coffee hour. We will be getting started in just a moment. Paul McConaughey from Cape Cod joining us, a regular here on Coffee Hour. Good morning, sir. Good to see your name in the chat box once again. And Cindy Satterfield from the Smeal College of Business. Good to see Cindy here doing some great work over in Smeal here at Penn State. Where else would you rather be than a Zoom full of Penn Staters? I'm Paul Clifford, CEO of the Penn State Alumni Association, and welcome to the Alumni Association's Coffee Hour. Each week, you can expect to hear the voices of Penn Staters talking about what they're passionate about, and you can expect to feel the pride and the power of the Penn State network. We are recording this session and closed captions are available for this event. You can find the information in the chat in Zoom or in the comments on Facebook. Before we dive in, I'd like to highlight a special collaboration by some of the colleges and campuses here at Penn State. It's called the Cooking Classic. Wednesday evenings, and tonight is actually the final edition of the Cooking Classic. They have had a great series of programs featuring great recipes and just great Penn Staters talking about one of their passions, which is cooking. Tune in this evening, 7 o'clock for the Cooking Classic. You can find more information about that in the chat on Zoom or in the comments on Facebook. Also, tomorrow night is the next edition of the Thon Alumni Reunion Series. You can watch these fantastic programs on the Thon Facebook page. Again, Thursday evenings at 7 is the Thon Alumni Reunion Series, building up and leading up to the first ever virtual Thon here in 2021. And so we hope you check out both of those programs. But right now, we are going to dive into our conversation with Natasha Bansgopaul. Natasha is the COO and Co-Founder of a digital asset firm, VegaX Holdings, and alternative investments platform, DarcMatter. She is the founder of 3 fintech companies and significantly increased the platform's assets under management to over $7 billion. With traditional corporate experience in M&A strategy, marketing, and innovation at Fortune 100 companies like Pepsi, Natasha continues to make an impact in the financial services by creating the next generation of fintech solutions for the global market. Her leadership has been featured in FastCompany, Black Enterprise, and Korea Times, in addition to being awarded the distinguished honor of Female Executive of the Year and Female Entrepreneur of the Year in 2018. Look, you can't log into LinkedIn without seeing something about our guest. She's all over the place. Join me in welcoming Natasha Bansgopaul to Coffee Hour. Natasha, good morning. How are you?
Hi, good morning. Good morning, Paul. Good morning, everybody. Glad to be here.
I'm having trouble hearing you, Natasha.
Okay,
and it might be on my end. So let me.
How's this? Can you hear me?
Perfect. Perfect. It's on.
Okay, perfect. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Paul. I'm very glad to be here.
All right, take two. I won't go back from the top though. We'll just pick it up right here. Natasha, tell everyone how you became a Penn Stater.
Awesome. So yeah, I actually became a Penn Stater for grad school. So I applied to Smeal for my MBA. And I was actually looking for an MBA school that I thought I was going to be able to really learn more, get intimate learning setting rather than a really big kind of larger class with hundreds and hundreds of students. I wanted a more personal touch, if you will. So I got that exactly at Penn State. So we had a really great class that we were really able to get to know each other and learn from each other. So that was one of the key things. And, you know, being in State College and being able to take advantage of the vast network of Penn State alumni was another big selling point. So I ended up at Penn State.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about that network in just a minute. I'm sure it's a network that you continue to interact with on a routine basis. I know you have a lot of friends here on Coffee Hour today. A lot of your friends from the Smeal College of Business are tuning in. So shout out to our friends.
Shout out to Smeal.
Out at Smeal. So while you were at Penn State, what were you involved in?
I was involved in a lot, I'd say. So I worked I received a scholarship to go to Penn State. And part of that scholarship was working with the Office of Diversity Enhancement and specifically working with undergraduate students in undergraduate programming. So I got to be involved in a lot of the business development associations and student groups that were specific to Smeal. So that gave me a kind of pulse on what was happening in the undergraduate community, which also gave me great respect for the undergraduate students as well, because being able to tackle what is a massive social life and massive academic life in one for an undergraduate career is no easy feat, and especially doing it at Penn State. So that is one of the reasons that I thought that that was another great place for students to excel, because they just had such a vast community there. So essentially, while I was there, I worked a lot with undergraduate programs. And then, of course, I was also part of the MBA Association, where I was working on corporate and alumni engagement.
So you're very humble when you say I received the scholarship to go to Penn State. You actually received the prestigious Bunton Waller Scholarship here at Penn State. What did that support mean to you, besides the activities that you were involved in, to know that Penn State was investing in you and your future?
It was a huge opportunity, and really, I am so grateful for it, because honestly, when I was applying to grad school, I didn't think about how I was going to pay for grad school. I kind of used that as an afterthought. I was really focused about getting in and finding a program that I really liked. And when it came down to finances, I hadn't really thought about that. So at the time that I applied to Penn State, I was made aware that there were some of these programs. And once I applied to it, I was thrilled that I was given the opportunity, because in addition to, you know, a full scholarship, it also gave me direct access to a community of minority talent and minority students and minority professionals at the university, which helped kind of craft an even kind of smaller community of support that I think helped as we were trying to navigate, you know, how to survive and thrive within this massive world of Penn State in this short 2-year period. So that definitely, that network was definitely a big support.
It's funny, you go from the beginning of your Penn State experience, not thinking about the financial side, to on the other end of your Penn State experience, and now your current life, to only thinking about finance.
About finance. It's funny how these things happen. It's really funny how these things happen.
This is the Penn State Alumni Association's Coffee Hour. I'm Paul Clifford. I'm joined this morning by Natasha Bansgopaul. She is the COO and Co-Founder of VegaX Holdings and DarcMatter. So your career started at Pepsi in the marketing and product development space, with a side venture as the CMO and founding member of Return of Change. Walk us through your career progression from Penn State to today.
Yeah, so when you get your MBA, especially at Penn State, it's almost expected that you're going to be in supply chain. So that's one of the things that's really interesting. We're number one for supply chain, obviously, around the world. And when it came to other careers at Penn State, you had to do a lot of additional work with the career services team, along with connecting with alumni to find different career tracks if it wasn't necessarily the most traditional. So going into marketing was actually one of those career tracks where I had to do some additional footwork to find alums and working with the career services and Paul Passant, who was a big help in terms of really tapping into the network and finding folks who had those experiences to help guide me on, the right way forward. So learning from, how they were able to tap into their careers and build their careers really helped, because as I was exploring, figuring out tapping into corporate America marketing, I really needed an in, because I needed to understand how those folks got there, what kind of roles they took, how they kind of thought about their career progression. And that's actually how I ended up at PepsiCo. So National Black MBA Association is one of the very big events that folks attend when you are in grad school at MBA, because it's a huge career fair and networking opportunity for you to ideally secure your MBA internship and then eventually secure your full-time offer. And I was rather successful at the MBA Association networking fairs, because I was able to really pinpoint that I wanted to do brand marketing, and these were the core companies that I wanted to work with. So I had a plan when I needed to go network and find these companies at this fair. So I was given an opportunity to work at Kellogg's in Battle Creek, Michigan, where I got my first brand marketing experience and an internship. And I got that through being able to go to that event, that National Black MBA event. And from there, I was able to essentially take that experience and figure out how I could parlay that into an offer into corporate CPG, consumer processed goods company. And that ended up being PepsiCo. So my way in was actually through marketing research and strategy. So that was the first role that I took at PepsiCo. Which was very highly analytical and strategic, in the sense that we were creating a lot of the data and strategic plans to support the brand teams. So it was a cross-functional role that really got you to learn the business. And from talking to alums and other folks, I was told that this is a great place to be, because part of what you need to do is really understand the cores of how the business works and understand kind of consumer mindsets. And that was a great role for that. But I knew I wanted to be in brand marketing. So I did some work in there, rotated to a few functions. And my next rotation was in a brand marketing role on brand Pepsi, where I got to work on amazing opportunities. So at PepsiCo, my goal there was really to get as much corporate experience as I could, because I knew eventually I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know what that looked like at the time. I definitely didn't think it was going to be in fintech or finance, that's for sure. But I knew that I needed some of that corporate experience and to get some real strategic wins on the board, so that at the time that I was going to go off on my own, I had a lot of credibility and check boxes, and my experience spoke for itself. So a lot of my plans have been about, making sure I am getting the credentials and experiences that allow me to do the next thing. One of that was getting my MBA at Penn State, which was one stepping stone. And then the next stepping stone after that was to checkbox all of my corporate experience and strategic insights, M&A, and brand marketing, in addition to innovation, so that when I left on my own, I could pull from those skill sets and be able to utilize that at my companies, which is something I've been able to do. So I went from working at PepsiCo for about 7 years or so, rotating to wonderful functions, working on amazing events and activations and brands. I worked on Beyonce Super Bowl, which was amazing. I led the MLB partnership and the MLS partnership. So it was very heavy in kind of consumer and brand marketing and activations. And then I got the opportunity to run what was called the incubation innovation team at the company, where essentially we were focused on acting like a startup within the confines of a corporation. So you quickly realize why startups don't work in corporations. But that was kind of my universe sign of saying it's finally time to kind of go. They're giving you a startup to run within the corporation. I think that's a sign that you should go do your startup. So as I was working at PepsiCo, I was starting to build what was the thesis behind our first company, Return on Change. which was really focused on financial literacy and crowdfunding equity. So something that is happening now in the market with like the Republics and the Kickstarters, et cetera, that folks are familiar with. We started with that about 7.5, 8 years ago. And as we were building that, I did both. So my thought was, let me keep working corporate and getting the safety and comfort of corporate and the steady paycheck while we figure out building our fintech engines and figure out how we can actually start moving towards the path of profitability. So I did both until I couldn't do both anymore. I got that universe sign to run that incubation team, and I made my departure from PepsiCo, and I haven't looked back since.
You know, it's interesting. You described your work within PepsiCo as a start off, like a startup on the side. It reminds me of a great book written by a friend of Penn State, a fellow MBA graduate of your program, Jim Stengel, wrote a book where he takes a look at startups inside of Fortune 500 companies and how some of them were successful and some of them weren't successful, and kind of the characteristics behind all of that. So let's level set because we're going to get into some definitions that, quite frankly, Natasha, was the first time I came across some of these things when I was reading your background. So words like, we're going to throw around words like fintech and blockchain and alternative investments. Let's start with fintech. Just a quick kind of textbook definition.
Yeah, so fintech itself, a lot of people tend to overcomplicate what fintech means. So fintech stands for financial technology. We shorten it to fintech. We shorten everything in tech. And essentially, it's really focused on disruptive solutions created by technology. So technology solutions have created disruption in the finance market. So what does that mean? That can mean anything from credit card payments, so getting rid of cash, which is a disruptor, to actually what is like new age right now, looking at digital assets. So that's something else we can talk about. But essentially, fintech is any technology that has been used to change, alter, or optimize the financial services industry in some shape or form.
Well, you mentioned how the MBA program was known for supply chain, but you're in a different kind of chain of work here with blockchain. Talk a little bit about what blockchain is.
Yeah, so blockchain technology is one of those next generation technologies that a lot of people are hearing about right now. And essentially, it's kind of simplest way to think about it is that blockchain is a new age database, if you will. And the way that people think about it is essentially it gets its name because data is organized in blocks and then it is connected by chains, hence blockchain. And the thought behind blockchain is that it's a technology that is open in the sense, open and transparent, which means folks can actually see what's happening. So you can see the code, you can understand to a degree the transactions and the movements and what's happening. It's immutable in the sense that you cannot change it. So the amazingness of blockchain is that it's unhackable, unfungible. So you can't go back and change anything in the history. It would have to then agree for all of the blocks to kind of agree that things have changed, and that's not how it works. So the thought behind it is that it's transparent, it is immutable, and it is decentralized. And what decentralized means is that there isn't one key decision maker in the sense of, let's say, banks who hold your money and they decide when the money can move and how long you have to wait to withdrawal, et cetera. This is decentralized in the sense that there are multiple computers or nodes that make the decisions as to how things can move on the network. So that is a basis of blockchain, but think of it as a new age database, a way of storing information in a quicker, more transparent way.
And then the last one I have here is alternative investments. I know I can go put money in a 401k. I know I could buy into buy stocks, right? But what are the alternatives to that? What are our alternative investments?
Yeah, great question. So alternative investments, it's pretty simple to understand as a whole, in the sense that alternative investments are anything that is not cash, stocks, or bonds. That's an alternative investment. So as long as it isn't cash, stock, or bond, it is an alternative investment. And when we talk about alternative investments, most often we're talking about hedge funds, private equity funds, venture capital funds, commodities, real assets, funds of funds, gold, art, antiquities. So there's a lot of those elements that come into these buckets of alternative investments. sneakers, which are getting on the play right now. So there's a lot of different opportunities, but essentially, if you think about it in the way that it's not a traditional cash, stock, or bond, it's classified as an alternative asset.
We could talk about this another time, but the sneaker market is outrageous. I can't believe people are buying and selling sneakers as an investment and not as a consumer article.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the interest in it is huge. And I think it's just one of those things where you see that technology is bringing to the foray a lot of these trends and things that were happening essentially behind closed doors and curtains, right? The sneaker market was always there. The
Right.
investors in the sneaker market was there, but now technology is kind of bringing it together in a very unique and interesting way. And I know that there are actually some Penn State alums that are working on this as well and figuring out how you either tokenize or put it into a fund. So that's definitely a space to look out for, especially if you're a sneakerhead.
Oh yeah, and there's so Randy Houston, president of the Penn State Alumni Association, is general counsel at Complex Networks. They
Yep.
have several television shows just about sneakers as a commodity.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and there are actually a ton on Netflix too. There are quite a few where you just see the amount of money that people are willing to pay for some of these sneakers, and of course, some of them aren't wearing them; they're collecting them, or they're just using it as an investment opportunity to essentially hold and then flip in a few years, which is another great opportunity if you understand that market and you really are passionate about sneakers.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the Kamala Harris Chuck Taylor line to come out. So
Oh, it's happening. It's in the
I know
works.
it
It's in the
is.
works.
So, Natasha, I was on your LinkedIn page, and most people on their LinkedIn pages have start and end dates for their experiences, but not you. You have start dates, and it currently appears like you're working 5 jobs. Share a little bit about DarcMatter and Constellation and VegaX and how they all interconnect.
Yeah, absolutely. So it looks that way because it's almost that way to a degree. So essentially, in startup world and in fintech world, you realize that you end up moving very fast. And the other thing about fintech that we've realized, so we've been in this industry for just about 10 plus years or so, is that you have to start placing calculated bets on what you think is the future. And what that means is if you think that a certain technology, a certain platform, a certain trend of some sort within finance is important or it is going to evolve over time, it's important as a fintech startup for you to be there from the beginning and start building in that manner. So with that being said, the hypothesis behind our company is at DarcMatter, which is our parent company for our other fintechs, is that we think about what is the next generation of fintech solutions and how we can play a part there. And more importantly, how we can bring our investors along. Because as we move into this new age of digitization and fintech solutions, a lot is changing, and it's changing faster than we've ever seen financial services change before. Extremely fast. It's one of those things where like it's been 50 plus years, before we've even had any updates to regulations on certain things in finance. And in these last 5 years, like you can just see how much has changed in terms of, even basic banking, like all the things you can do now without having to be at the store, at the actual brick and mortar bank, right? So you can see that things are changing and things are changing very quickly. But our hypothesis, as I was saying with DarcMatter, is building next generation technologies that we think are going to really affect the financial services market on a global scale. So what does that mean? We started with online platform DarcMatter, which was about connecting investors with hedge funds, private equity funds, and venture capital funds who were looking for investors. So we built an online tool to connect two parties and compliantly share all information and transact in a secure way. So our thought there was that people are going to start doing more business online. Capital raising is a huge problem, and people are tired of wasting money of getting on planes and traveling to go do these investor meetings and road shows. There's got to be an easier way, and in comes DarcMatter. And that's how we were thinking about that. The next evolution of that was, as we are building more efficiencies on platform building and online solutions, what does that look like for the next generation of technology? And that's where blockchain comes in. So how do we build technology infrastructure that makes things more efficient And do we think that blockchain is one of those ways? And the answer to that is yes, we do believe that. So we built Constellation. And Constellation is primarily focused on technology development, blockchain technology development. So it's full of product developers that are really working and focusing on how do we create dark matter with blockchain background. So running on blockchain technology, how can we make the investment process, sourcing, qualification, et cetera, process in alternative investments even easier and more efficient? So that's what Constellation was built for. And that has been around for just about 3 years now. And we are still actively building. And the nature of blockchain is that it is consistently evolving. So you need to essentially be actively building and in the community to take advantage of some of these new updates and new technologies that are being built. So Constellation is a blockchain development and consulting arm that really helps other firms figure out also if they need to build blockchain solutions internally. So we recommend that. And then our next progression of that is, as you look at the investment landscape, what does investment services look like in the next 5, 10 years, or even right now? And that is the world of digital assets. So this is, how do we digitize everything going on, from one sort of form of digitalization, which is, we put your information online, to the real form of digitization, or the future thinking is, how do we essentially tokenize these assets and make them available in a digital way with all of the proper compliance, regulation, security needs that are existent in today's market. So what does that look like? And that's what VegaX is about. VegaX is really creating what we like to call the BlackRock of crypto, where essentially we're creating ETF-like solutions wrapped in digital assets like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, in hopes to give investors an easy on-ramp, traditional investors, an easy way to start entering into crypto and to start investing and potentially trading in strategies that are familiar to them. So making sure that things look a bit more like a mutual fund, a bit more like an ETF, so that as investors start to understand this world of digital assets more, they're also able to invest in products that they understand intuitively and that are a bit more familiar. So the thought is, how do we now start bringing the industry along to what we believe is the new age, which will be digital assets? And that's where VegaX is. So we're kind of always focusing on what that next stage is of fintech development or fintech trends that we double down on, in the sense that if we can build and make it efficient and make it work, we know that it has legs, and then we can eventually lift and shift that to different markets. So that's our hypothesis: be there, build there, and help people get there.
So it sounds, so if I were to kind of repeat back to you, the evolution of this industry is that alternative investments were out in front, right? And then you came up with financial technology solutions to help make access to those alternative investments easier.
Yep.
And now in some ways, the development of future technologies are actually pulling the investment side forward, right?
Exactly.
And
Yep.
driving the progress in the other direction. So, when you think of developments in technology, there's the symbiotic relationship that I just talked about.
Yep.
With the emergence of artificial intelligence, you talked about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. They're hot topics right now in investing. Can you share your thoughts on how these and the emergence of fintech tools have actually helped ease investing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the bottom line, the answer to that question is access, right? And that's something that we have always hinged our bets on at our companies, is how do we increase access and exposure compliantly, right? How do we do that in a compliant and secure manner, right? And it really comes down to, a lot of these solutions are about breaking down barriers to allow more people to get in and are aware of these opportunities, and providing that access to them. So we're talking about opportunities to bank the unbanked, which is a very huge opportunity right now. There are over 55 million Americans that are unbanked or underbanked, and they just don't have solutions. So now you have a ton of fintechs companies that are building solutions to try to cater to this population, which is no easy feat, but is a huge opportunity. So what you're seeing is that this evolution, providing access to communities that haven't had access before, and then making access even easier for communities who have had access. So how do we make things even more efficient for accredited investors, for more of the qualified investors? A lot of those high brow investors that maybe have never even interacted or to their knowledge with, fintech tools. How are they actually going to, activate those things, and how do we make it easier for them to essentially spend more money and get into the market a bit easier? And that's what you're seeing, is that everything is focusing on how do we make access easier and how do we make things more efficient? Because at the bottom line, in financial services, a lot of money is made by intermediaries and fees. And what that means is you're paying somebody a portion of something to do something. And what the honest truth is half the time you don't know what you're paying them to do. You're just told that you have to pay them, you pay them, and that's it, because that's the way that things go. But what fintechs are doing now, and what you see in solutions, is they're really asking those questions as to what's that fee for and why. And if it's for transmitting data, then let's go blockchain and get rid of those fees or reduce them to some degree. So that's what you're really seeing, is a progression of how do we provide more access and break down barriers to give people opportunities to interact with this industry more than they have before.
So just so I understand the work that you and your companies are doing, though, you're not direct to consumer. It sounds like you might be more B2B, where you're providing platforms for companies to then go directly to the consumer. So you're one maybe one layer removed from the consumer interaction. When you're talking about access, right? I'm starting to think about current events and how access is really good, but in some ways, some of these direct to consumer access, like Robinhood, could turn out to be dangerous. So am I characterizing the work that you're doing properly?
To a degree, yeah, to a degree. So it's mostly B2B in the sense that there are definitely highbrow institutions that utilize the technology and the platform to, make their day-to-day easier. But it's also a retail investor on-ramp, specifically DarcMatter, because the thought is also, as we look at kind of the accredited investor world and you look at the digital asset world doesn't have constraints or regulations as it pertains to you have to be an accredited investor to invest, right? But you do need a level of understanding to be able to actually, be dangerous and essentially profit off of some of those investments. And VegaX is working specifically on how do we give individual investors that on-ramp, in addition to being able to provide the infrastructure for enterprise level, more in the B2B side of things, to access and plug and play. So it's a dual model in a sense, but we're very cognizant that you need to bring investors along, and investors meaning retail investors in addition to institutions, but you need to bring them along with education, which is also something that, may have fallen short in the Robinhood scenarios, if you will. It was a focus on let's just get people on, get them trading, get them investing, where I don't think people necessarily knew what they were doing. They were just doing it, right? And we're very focused on making sure that people understand specifically to a degree what they're doing, why they're doing it, so that they can be more active and play a more active role in their investments as well.
So all of this success early in your career has led to you being named a 2021 Presidential Innovation Fellow. How did that come about, and what is the role of a Presidential Innovation Fellow?
Yeah, so a Presidential Innovation Fellow is a huge honor. So I was selected with about 34 other wonderful technologists from the United States. And we went through a pretty thorough screening process where essentially your goal or your interest in being a PIF is to essentially be able to give back or perform a service duty within civil tech is what we call it. So how do we use our experiences as technologists within our field to create impact at the government level, to hopefully impact Americans and provide positive solutions and benefits from technology. So Presidential Innovation Fellows was created to essentially do that, resource some leading technologists in the US to agencies that are solving core problems that revolve around some of the key tech issues that we may have, or tech problems, or even projects that we want to kind of ramp up. And how do we kind of get that private sector support and that know-how? And that's what the PIF program is, bringing in some of those technologists to help within agency to work on some of these challenging programs or problems. And where I came in is I had the wonderful opportunity to be selected to work with NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, in the ITL lab, the Information and Technology Lab, working specifically on AI, artificial intelligence, and transparency and bias. So a lot of that, as a lot of things are popping up right now that you've heard in the news about artificial intelligence, bias, Google article, a lot of the fodder coming from that. There's a lot happening in this space. And again, as we look at technology, it moves very fast. So what we're working on is how do we continue to stay on top of what is the evolution of AI, and how do we continue to make sure we're bringing in best practices and helping from a government level, whether it pertains to kind of frameworks and information, all the way through the policies that need to be created to support this infrastructure and the development of AI. It's something that's definitely long-term and is actively being looked at. And because of that, as you can imagine, there's a lot of work going on it across AI, across the US and across international organizations. So it's very important, as we are doubling down on AI solutions and integration of AI, that we figure out a lot of this foundational work, because as folks build and move, we don't want any of these systems to be built in a bias or in some sort of extremely biased way that then mimics some of the problems that we already see in current day and time.
Yeah. So I'm always interested when industries collide with each other. I think of the connection between the National Basketball Association, for example, and the R&B world and entertainment. It seems, now I don't want to characterize this next project that you're working on, but it seems like the project that you work on with Live from Tomorrow is looking to drive some inspiration in the innovation world from arts and entertainment and music and sketch comedy. Talk a little bit about your advisor role on Live from Tomorrow.
Yeah, Live from Tomorrow is a wonderful media company that I work with. Matt Hooper is the founder and the CEO there, and the main talent. And it's a wonderful show. So I'll say that the bottom line is it's a show. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on Apple Podcasts. It's called Live from Tomorrow. And I guarantee you it's a show that you've never heard or seen before. So my role there is essentially, it is one of the opportunities that I have to continue to flex my non-financial creative muscle, if you will, where we really focus on thinking about, in a creative mindset, what does tomorrow look like? And what does that look like across a myriad of industries? So it started with thinking about, like, how does the company itself started focusing on the New York tech scene and the startup scene. And really, it started as a live show where people would attend essentially an hour of live kind of skits, music programming in a kind of musical comedy way. And it really hit on some highbrow topics where it was like, as you look at technology, like, what does the technology of tomorrow look like? And how does that affect our world? And what does that look like, in terms of, growth when it comes to local cities and ecosystems? And what does that even, where can you imagine a world 20 years later, embracing all of these nuances? And, it adds in, political layers as well, in terms of understanding, how certain decisions could get us into different ways. So I think that it's a wonderful kind of humorous, bold podcast now that's transitioned to a podcast, especially since COVID. But essentially, it's a great break in your day, if you will, where you are starting to think a little bit more about what is the future, but in a comical, lighthearted way, which I think is something that a lot of people need right now. So it's highbrow humor in a comedic, musical manner. And I think the best way to do it is just listen and start to kind of embrace it.
That's awesome. It sounds like a second city for innovators.
That's perfect. Yes, we're using that.
So you've been on this wild and crazy ride, this entrepreneurial journey that you've been on. What are some lessons that you've learned along the way?
That's a great question. I have learned a lot of lessons along the way. So I think one of the biggest things, I think, that in terms of being an entrepreneur is knowing your strengths and weaknesses and knowing when to ask for help. So as an entrepreneur, you wear many hats and you're essentially kind of like ingrained that, you do everything and you figure it out, which is essentially, that's the job, right? If you're an entrepreneur, it's on you. The onus is on you to figure it out and make it happen. But it's also on you to know where, you're tapped out and where you might not be the best person for the job. So whether that come to, perhaps, you're not you're not great at communication and marketing, but you're really great at financial engineering and modeling. So that might be something that you don't try to go become a master financial engineer as an entrepreneur, but you find someone with those skills that you think could complement yours and that you can work with. So I think it's important to make sure that you kind of really understand to a really honest degree where you think your strengths and weaknesses lie, and make sure you start building upon those weaknesses, whether that is hiring on your team or starting to learn a new skill or, meeting people that have that skill so you can start to learn a bit more. I think that there are a lot of ways in there, but I think one thing is to have a really honest kind of self-analysis about yourself and figure out, how you can utilize your network and other folks to complement your skills.
So I think about all the great things that you've been able to do. And I wonder along your journey if there were some, so first of all, looking forward, right? And inequities and barriers that you had to overcome in the fintech world. And then looking backwards as how do you trailblaze a path for others like you to go down the same road, right? As a role model and as an example to other women of color that might be dreaming about this but not have somebody to follow. Well, what are some of the things that you have faced and how has that changed and affected how you turn around and look at what you do for the next generation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So personal passion. So first, happy Black History Month. Happy Black History Month. A personal passion project of mine is really minority talent development and women in tech, right. Specifically women in fintech, but it's kind of the realm. And the reason that it's part of my passion project is because when I got into the industry, I could not find anyone that looked like me. I could not find any network of Black women in fintech, Black women in startups. It wasn't a thing, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. It wasn't a thing. Now I'm thrilled to say that there are a lot of groups and organizations and small clubs, et cetera, that are focused on creating these communities and support groups for women of color, which is wonderful because it is not something that existed years ago. And I think it exists now because of the same people who had this problem years ago where we couldn't find each other. And it was hard to find people when you were also very focused on building a business and trying to raise capital and, pay employees, et cetera. So it becomes hard to, spend the time to find these networks and find these people and build your own network. So that's one challenge, which I am happy to say I think is starting to get a bit easier. The other challenge, which I think comes out a lot is, access to capital. As a Black female founder, it's been difficult finding access to capital. I have a co-founder who's Korean American, and between the two of us and our CTO, we like to say we're the most diverse team in fintech, which is true. And essentially, we always have a hard time finding capital in itself because either ideas are too early, or essentially we aren't a part of that top tier network where, deals just get done by, one call or an email sent. So we've had to work extra hard to build those networks and tap in and get our way into those networks so that we can take advantage of some of those opportunities. So I think that that's also another difficulty is accessing capital so that you can get some of these ideas off the ground. And some of the advice that I'd give in terms of, how to find role models or, how to kind of like figure out even potentially thriving in this industry is to do the work to find people and to join a lot of these groups and find them. It's hard to find them, but finding women like myself, other folks that have these networks and are in positions, whether they be startup founders or they just joined a startup, everyone has their own network and everyone is building their own network. You're just not necessarily aware of what their network is. So I think a lot of the work needs to be done with find those people that you admire for their skills, their opportunities, their businesses, et cetera, and reach out to them. You'd be surprised how much people respond. You'd be surprised how willing people are to help, as long as it is clear that, you know, you're interested, you're passionate, and you're specific about what it is that you want to get out of a relationship or what you need. People are willing to help. And then especially kind of later on, you know, things like Penn State Alumni Association and that network, then you kind of go above and beyond where people will immediately kind of answer your call and answer your email, right? So the more that you can get tapped into some of these broader networks and more community groups, the easier it will be to kind of identify those people that you want to connect with and figure out your way in to connect to them.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a current events question, and you could dodge it if you want. I'm not looking for necessarily opinion, just explanation. But about 2 weeks ago, the triangle of Reddit, GameStop, and Robinhood, and just disruption in the market. My son, 21-year-old gamer, comes downstairs and he's like, "Do we own any GameStop, any GameStop stock?" And I'm like, and my reaction was, "No, GameStop's not going to exist in 5 years. It's like buying Blockbuster.
Why would we own that?"
Blockbuster Video stock 15 years ago. He's like, "Well, you would be rich today if you owned it." What happened? Can you explain for those of us who don't know?
Yes, I can explain it to on a high level, a very high level. We won't get into the weeds, but essentially what finally happened is that the retail consumers did exactly what Wall Street does every day of their life, is essentially what happened. So what happened with GameStop is that there is a group on Reddit, and Reddit itself, for folks that don't know, is essentially a discussion forum where folks can create a username, and there are all of these discussion boards about every topic you could even possibly imagine, from, you know, really humorous, silly things to like very serious, you know, astrophysicist, you know, board, like very, very important things, very specific highbrow things to not so highbrow things. And this one fell right in the medium bucket, I'd say, of like important financial things, where this forum talks specifically about, you know, stocks and trading and investment opportunities. And quite frankly, it's existed for quite some time, and they have been planning this for quite some time, is essentially what the truth is. And essentially what they did is they all just rallied to unite and say, we're all going to essentially invest in GameStop. And essentially we're going to hold the line. And hold the line means they're not going to sell, because essentially what they started to realize is that there were a lot of short sell orders on the market from big hedge fund players. So $1 million, $1 billion market players were hedging their bets on shorting the GameStop stock. But everyone on this kind of retail bubble from Reddit started to purchase and hold to make the price go up. So there, as a result, were the big wigs on Wall Street were not necessarily able to benefit directly from their plan to short in the time frame that they planned to short. So that essentially just meant that there were millions of dollars being lost on big money in terms of the Wall Street, big bankers, hedge funds, et cetera. And that money essentially was potentially being redistributed to retail investors who might have come from this Reddit forum, who kind of all rallied together to say, this is our plan, let's do it. And they pretty successfully did it for some time. And that was what was surprising, because the only time that we really see the power of the crowd doing things like this is usually in cryptocurrency. And what's interesting is that that spilled over into kind of traditional investments to a degree, where folks kind of rallied together, used this online forum as their method to kind of chat and decide what they were going to do. And they all rallied and executed a plan. And that's just the power of planning and the power of community, if you will. And, you know, they have been trying to do things like this for quite some time. And I think this is one of the times that they've been successful. And I think that you'll see more things like this happen in the future as folks start to really believe the power of, you know, rallying and uniting as one front to potentially, you know, go against what they think is like the big bad wolf, which is essentially what they deem as Wall Street.
Well, thank you for that explanation. I wish they would have explained it that way on MSNBC. You might have a future on on financial commentary and going in that direction, because that was the best explanation that I have heard of what actually went on. Right, just above my son, who was gaming upstairs and talking about it on Twitch. with everybody who was.
With everybody. Yeah, I'm sure. It was a very exciting time for folks, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. It definitely was a powerful win.
This is the Alumni Association's Coffee Hour. We're talking with Natasha Bansgopaul. She's a fintech guru. Natasha, we like to have a little bit of fun here in what we call our lightning round. So I'm just going to throw a couple quick questions at you, and you give me your first thing that pops to mind.
Okay.
So your favorite Penn State memory?
Oh, two. Maya Angelou came to campus, which was huge. So we got to go see her speak, which was amazing. And my second one is just being able to go to the ice skating rink with friends, because that was like amazing to have on-campus access to ice skating.
That's awesome. I know this is called lightning round, but maybe this is a more in-depth question here, and it's a little off script, but did you ever, when you came to Penn State as a graduate student, did you expect to have such a strong connection to the institution that you have today?
No, not at all, honestly. And I always honestly, I felt like a poser to a degree, because I had a 2-year education. But like I said, I worked with undergrads who were there for 4 years, some maybe even 5 or so. And I always felt like, oh, like, I love this school, I have so much passion for it, but like, am I not supposed to? Because I'm not an undergrad, so I didn't get the full 4-year, but I feel like my 2-year was just as intense in itself. But I think it's hard not to go to Penn State and get that passion, because once you're there, it's just like this amazing place that you just get sucked into, and it's hard not to drink the Kool-Aid, if you will, and live the we are and do everything Penn State. So it was very easy to slip into that, and I am happy to say that it's still very much live and vibrant with me today.
I think you just described the Penn State experience as that the Penn State experience is atypical. There is no typical Penn State experience, right? You might have been 2 years at Altoona and then come up to U Park for 2 years, or your entire program on World Campus. You just did Penn State in your own atypical, unique way, which makes it the kind of quintessential Penn State experience. And so, yeah. How about your favorite class at Penn State?
Favorite class? Entrepreneurship was one of my favorites, and organizational behavior was another. I think that it's one, you can't necessarily teach someone to be an entrepreneur, but it's so important to understand what that means. And I think it's extremely important for you to understand if you just don't want to do it and it's not for you. And I think that that class also gives you that opportunity. And org behavior is huge, because as you're working in corporations, you realize that there is definitely a strategic element to how you navigate working with people, how you navigate projects, how you navigate, being promoted, etc. And that class actually helped kind of open your eyes to that a bit. So those are kind of my top two.
All right. How about if you could have dinner with anyone, who would it be and why? And a follow-up to that is, you live in the food capital of the world in New York City. So where would it be then too?
Ooh, oh man. Okay. So I would do a 3-woman power dinner with Oprah Winfrey, Serena Williams, and Kimora Lee Simmons, because I'm obsessed with all 3 of them. And I love what they're doing in terms of making investments and VC investments, et cetera, into the space right now, which is huge. Where would we go? I think we would actually just go on a food tour of New York City, because that's the best way to essentially get as much as you want. And we may even layer on like Asian food tour, because I think that is especially good in New York. And I might even layer on Korean, because we doubled down on Korean food and Korea as a whole at our company. So.
Yeah, and you'd probably bring your co-founder as a +1. So.
Oh yeah. Oh well, if he heard I had that invite, there's no way he's letting me go by myself.
So, what has been your most unusual we are moment? Kind of the unusual or unexpected place where you ran into a Penn Stater and you're like, oh, we are.
Yes, that happened to me. It happens to me normally in airports, because that's when I tend to have on my Penn State swag, I think. But the oddest airport it happened to me in was in Seoul, South Korea. I was there for business, and I was wearing my hoodie that time, my kind of zip up hoodie. And I had a few people just yell "we are" and kind of like come close to me. And I didn't realize what was happening at first, because I didn't expect it to happen in Seoul. But there goes, the Penn State community extends far and wide, and another airport running.
Absolutely. How about your favorite Penn State sport?
Football.
Absolutely. And favorite flavor of creamery ice cream?
Okay. Okay, I have two. One I don't remember the name of. One of them is Peachy Paterno.
Right?
The other, I don't remember. It's one of those extremely chocolate ones.
Oh, it's Death by Chocolate.
Death by Chocolate. Yes,
There you go.
yes, yes, yes. That would be it. So actually, Death by Chocolate would be number one, and Peachy Paterno would be number two.
That's amazing. Let me see if we have any questions coming in here. We have just a couple minutes. We could take a question or two.
Awesome.
So Juliana wants to know, how do you see the potential for foreign fintechs involvement in the U.S. market? Examples like e-banks that are starting from Brazil and getting a huge hold of the continental American market, but see different reality in the U.S. So potential for foreign fintechs.
Yeah, I think it's about finding your niche, and also, especially if it has to do with banking, finding partners. So a lot of banking opportunities in the US, at least traditional banking firms or institutions, they're creating more digital sandboxes and opportunities to plug and play with other fintech companies, because they're starting to be aware that they can't necessarily stay on top of innovation internally and build all the solutions that they need to all in-house. So what you're seeing is that there are folks' jobs who are now like head of fintech and innovation scouts, if you will, at these banks, who are looking for companies that have some of the solutions that they need to either purchase, license, or move in house in some degree. And that may be an opportunity and way in. Entering traditional American banking infrastructure is difficult for anyone. It's purposely done so. There are a lot of charters, regulations, et cetera, that need to be kind of signed off on and completed in order to kind of officially do things like this in terms of neobanks. But things are getting a bit easier, which is why you're seeing a lot of neobanks pop up more in the US, but they serve a very specific function. So it might just be for checking accounts, or it might just be for offering credit lines, et cetera. So I'd say focus on the niche in terms of the offering, and then see if there are opportunities to partner with American or US institutions to be able to provide them either with that technology or that opportunity that your company is able to provide.
So Jim is out on Facebook Live. He wants to know, what are some examples of challenges and opportunities that public and private tech partnerships could address?
Okay, so some opportunities of public-private partnerships. So one, I think that there are a ton of opportunities for public-private partnerships in government sector. So that's number one. Everything, like I said before, everything can't be built in-house, and the expertise doesn't necessarily lie in-house. So that's one thing. And I think in terms of one core opportunity, right now we can even look at let's say machine learning and data science, for example. So there are there's a lot of work being done right now in the private sector in terms of quantum computing, being more efficient with machine learning practices that feed into artificial intelligence algorithms, et cetera. The thought leaders and the top level practitioners of this technology don't necessarily exist in government, and government is aware of that. So they're looking for thought leaders who want to partner with government and want to work with us internally on the policy level and on the kind of technical level to figure out, how does government build these solutions and how do they approach things in a partnership way? Because part of the benefit of public-private partnership is being able to document and share that public government organizations are working with top leading thought leaders and experts that really get this field. And therefore, it kind of layers in an added level of credibility for the programs and work that the government is working on. So I think there are huge opportunities. There are a lot in tech. We definitely see some in AI. And as you look at more of these very technical concepts, there's definitely a lot of opportunity there.
Well, Natasha, we are up against our hour. It's been so great to have you on Coffee Hour this morning.
Awesome.
Thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Same.
If people want more information about you or about your companies, where could they go to find that?
Yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn, Natasha Bansgopaul on LinkedIn, Bansy Bans, BANSIBANS on Twitter, and our company is on LinkedIn as well, VegaXHoldings.com and VegaX Holdings on LinkedIn, VegaX Holdings on Twitter. So if you follow me or reach out to me, I'd be glad to connect and glad to follow back.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us on Coffee Hour, and thank you for tuning in on Facebook Live and here in the Zoom room. If you're a member of the Penn State Alumni Association, thank you so much for your support. If not, what are you waiting for? Go to our website and join at alumni.psu.edu, and you too can become a member of the world's largest alumni association. Thanks for all you do for the university, for the glory, and for the future. We are
Penn State.